So we need to understand these nuances to be able to demand effectively from this forum and other forums. If you look at trade, I'll just give you a last example and close this. If you look at $50 per hour, it becomes 1 million US dollar. So I don't know of any trade agreement which sort of factors in this kind of unequal exchange. To sum up, governments, but internationally we also need to demand
Yes. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats as the session is about to start in 5 minutes. Excellencies, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to the second session of the United Nations Asia-Pacific Science Policy Business Forum on the Environment. I am Shireen Zorba, Executive Secretary of the Forum, the United Nations fastest growing multi-sector convening platform on the environment, focusing on technology, partnership, and integrated solutions for nature. It is a pleasure and an honor to convene the first in-person edition of the Asia-Pacific Forum here in beautiful Sri Lanka. Our sincere gratitude to the government and the people of Sri Lanka, especially the Ministry of Environment, for the generous hospitality, and for the UN Environment Programme's Regional Office for the excellent facilitation. We are delighted to be here. The Asia-Pacific region, a hub of exponential growth and urban expansion, is distinguished by its rich biodiversity and integral role in the international supply chain. The region stands at a critical crossroads. The driving forces that have powered its extraordinary growth over the last 3 decades may not suffice in an age marked by persistent disruption. Governments and regulatory bodies are on a path to shape markets through evolving policies and regulations aimed at securing the region's sustainable future. The majorities of countries in the region have revised their climate objectives, with almost 1/3 pledging commitments to net zero emissions. To meet the global sustainability and decarbonization targets, regulatory policies, voluntary business actions, and societal shifts must be undertaken in unison. Decarbonization needs to go hand in hand with integrated approaches to overcome biodiversity loss, conserve ecosystems, and combat pollution at scale. At today's marathon event, and it is a marathon, it is not going to be a tight, black tie event. We want to hear from you. We want to integrate, to interact, and we want an honest and powerful discussion. And we don't have time, so we will go really as much in a focused manner as possible. The morning session will examine pathways to building policy cohesion and opportunity for green technological transformation. We will juxtapose perspectives from private sector and government on how to unleash potential and overcome barriers. In the afternoon, we will dive deep into the vital question of how to build better and more robust green infrastructure. Sustainable investment in infrastructure stands at the cornerstone of a nation's economic vitality. The Asia-Pacific region confronts an urgent infrastructural development need, necessitating an estimated $4.7 trillion investment in the next decade, which we hope will go towards sustainable and green investments in infrastructure. Environmentally sustainable infrastructure could massively cut greenhouse gas emissions, achieving up to 70% of necessary carbon emission reductions by 2030. Economically, the UN Environment Programme asserts that refining resource efficiency could bolster global economic output by 4% and diminish raw material usage by 28% by 2050. Conclusively, the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, who we will hear from in session 2, it accentuates the crucial role of sustainable infrastructure investment in minimizing disaster-induced economic damage. Meeting the vast financing challenge, especially for countries with constrained resources, remains pivotal to actualize these benefits. Today, we will ask questions. We hope to hear those answers, and we hope to take forward your recommendations. As we embark on this marathon today, it is my pleasure to introduce my co-moderator for today's session, Professor Budi Maramba, member of the Sri Lanka National Experts Committee on Climate Adaptation and chair of the National Invasive Species Specialist Group, as well as his senior academic role. Before I hand over to Professor Budi, it is my pleasure to welcome Sri Lankan sustainability pioneer Nimal Pereira, president of the Sustainable Consumption and Production Forum, to share with us words of inspiration from the Sri Lankan culture and legacy. Thank you.
Thank you, Shireen, for the introduction. Good morning and Ayubowan everybody. It means be long life for all. That's the way we are blessing each other. The Honorable State Minister Nasir Ahmed, Secretary to the Ministry of Environment, Dr. Anil Jasingha, all environmental ministers and secretaries from the Asia Pacific region, members of the UN delegation, all distinguished participants from the Sri Lanka and Asia Pacific region, my colleague professionals from Sri Lanka, ladies and gentlemen. I warmly welcome all of you to this important session, the second session of the United Nations Science Policy Business Forum on Environment for the Asia Pacific region today. It's my great pleasure to address you all with few inspiring thoughts with my capacity as the President to SCP Forum Sri Lanka. We, the SCP Forum Sri Lanka, is a group consists of professionals and interest groups on the 12th SDG, specifically the responsible consumption and production. SCP Forum was established as a continuation of the momentum initiated with the EU-funded Training of Trainers program funded by Switch Asia SCP National Policy Support Component project from 2015 to 2019 in Sri Lanka. Addressing and promoting of sustainable consumption and production. In 2020, we managed to incorporate SCP Forum Sri Lanka and currently we are working closely with the APRSCP, Asia Pacific Roundtable on Sustainable Consumption and Production, as their representative body in Sri Lanka. At this critical juncture, nature raising her arms against the world, especially on current human civilization. We are at a big threat. Global GHG and temperatures are at an increasing trend. Global warming has come to an end while global boiling is being started. Global climate extremes are occurring in short cycles. In my country, few weeks back, we had several communities under the threat of severe drought. And now, thousands of families under the severe threats of flood. The pandemics, natural disasters are becoming regular. Human civilization at a serious threat in between certain unforeseen and reason, but still we don't know what we have to do. More or less due to the different phases of greediness and high consumption patterns among human communities. Human civilization at a serious threat again in between certain unforeseen reasons. This is the truth. It is the timely gathering of our Asia Pacific regional policy leaders to plan and develop directives to face the challenges of our behaviors under this theme, putting sustainability into the gear in the Asia Pacific region. Future profiting, economics, people, and planet. I may add a bit of reality into this theme. The fourth or the most important dimension of the sustainability, none other than nature. That's beyond the triple bottom line approach model of the sustainable development. So accordingly, we should work future-proofing economics, people, and the planet within the guidelines and the nature and her behaviors. We should understand and we have to realize with the nature. Are the present generations, are we really have the real understanding about the nature and its behavior? So that's the question again and again I'm asking from our communities. With the civilization, human community was looking at agriculture, not the agricultural industry, shelter, clothes, education, etc. In between, I would like to share, I quote 3 examples from the different perspectives from Sri Lanka, which refer to the connection, to make the connection in between the nature and the economy. The first, the spiritual rather than a religious case, according to the historical script says, that's basically the disciplinary code is being given to the Buddhist monks. Initially, how the Lord Buddha guided his disciples to about their robes from where it has to be found. Only to the first cases, only to have maximum of 3 robes in their system. And their The ownership is given to only to 3 robes. That's the guideline. Material for this robes to be exploded from the cemetery accompanied with the dead bodies. Take this clothes out, wash this material well, and disinfect them with saffron. And later on, in the 5th and 4th century BCE, when Ananda Thero, who was the primary attendant of the Buddha, one of his 10 principal disciples, receiving new garments from the king. At that point, the king asked, what will you do with the old garments? We will make the bed covers out of them. What will you do with the old bed covers? We will make pillowcases. What will you do with the old pillowcases? We will make floor covers out of them. What will you do with the old the foot towels? We will use them for floor mops. What will you do with the old mops? The final answer was, we will tear them into small pieces, mix them with mud, and use mud to plaster the house walls. So that's basically the life cycle of clothes. Secondly, agriculture and our national irrigation system, which I don't want to elaborate a lot because of the time constraint. During this period, one of our past king Parakram Bahu was stated, let's not a drop of water to the sea without serving human. An estimated 15,000 tanks were built during this period. And thirdly, the case from the metal industry. From the 7th to the 11th century AD, Sri Lanka was united under the strong central administration of a king. Archaeologists know this as the island's classic period. During this period, the Damascus swords were being developed or made in Sri Lanka. The beauty of this industry was their furnaces allowed monsoon winds and blow every year from June to September, fanning the furnaces. But unfortunately, we all were human until myths makes us blind, religious separated us. Local parties, local politics and geopolitics divided us. Wealth classified us as poor and wealthy, and the greediness chased away the unselfishness and generosity. As a result of the above resource disparity gaps is keep on increasing, while planet become unsustainable. This is the high time to bind all our hands together to face the challenges of climate change while developing adaptation measures, especially for Sri Lanka-like countries, strengthen the biodiversity to support the human health and the wealth, minimum air, water, and ground pollution, especially plastic pollution and ocean pollution. Let's understand the decoupling challenges. Think scientifically. We'll start think scientifically, plan for technology, do business and for sustainable future. We have no option B. Because we don't have planet B. Let's follow the path of sustainability and SDGs guiding principles, especially sustainable consumption and production. With this, I conclude my deliberations and looking forward to have a fruitful day with a science-based sustainable policy interventions to guide the sustainable business in Asia and the Pacific and beyond, not for me, but for our future generations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Liman Perra. There's no option B and no planet B. That's a sustainability lesson we all learned a while ago. Good morning once again, Excellencies, colleagues, and ladies and gentlemen. A forum that is organized by United Nations Environment Programme, Science Policy Business Forum, and Ministry of Environment, Sri Lanka, putting sustainability into gear in the Asia-Pacific region. To get into business, who else can provide the welcome address other than, in this collaborative effort, other than the regional director of United Nations Environment Programme for the Asia and the Pacific. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dechen Sering. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Professor. Honorable Minister Nasir Ahmed, Minister of Environment of Sri Lanka, distinguished ministers, excellencies, distinguished members of the Round Table, government representatives, scientists, esteemed business leaders. And thank you, Shireen, and for the UNEP colleagues. So a very warm welcome to you to the second session of the United Nations Science Policy Business Forum on the environment for the Asia-Pacific region. And we look forward to bringing science, policy, and business converging. And it's such an honor to be in beautiful Sri Lanka. I want to thank Honorable Minister Ahmed for your very generous hospitality and very deep appreciation to you and your team for the excellent support to this forum. So this forum provides a solution pathway that integrates innovation, governance, commerce, and we're looking to a resilient and sustainable Asia-Pacific. You've been hearing a lot about the triple planetary crises. We've been talking about the crises of climate, the crises of nature, the crises of waste and pollution. And science, business, innovation, it's more vital than ever. Collaboration, knowledge sharing, innovative solutions. You've also heard that our region is vulnerable, adversely impacted with the adverse impacts of climate change. So we're looking at, when we did an analysis of the nationally determined contributions, this is what countries put together in terms of their emissions. 79% of the emissions come from the G20 countries. And then we start to look at, 100 sort of private sector. So you can start to sort of zero in on 20 countries, 100 companies. But you're also looking at a region where the most adversely impacted. You're looking at climate refugees, you're looking at people losing culture, losing livelihoods. It's also in our region. And so I think a green structural transformation addresses the region's environmental challenges, but unlocks significant socioeconomic benefits. When we did a 2022 analysis of the nationally determined contributions, we're not on track to 1.5 degree world. The world's warmed 1.1 degrees. And we've seen in our region extreme monsoon floods in Pakistan. We're not talking about 100-year floods. You're just talking about extreme monsoon rains and the adverse impacts. So we know we're starting to understand what the impacts of a warming world is. The UN, in 2015, we agreed on the Sustainable Development Goals, and by 2030, we said these were the targets. Our region has found that the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, we've achieved 14% of them. We're going to need several decades to achieve the other SDGs, and these are goals related to poverty, related to living on land, living underwater, climate change, a goal that's regressed. So coming from UNEP, I'm convinced we don't need more science. We have the Global Environment Outlooks, we have the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, we have all the reports, we have the Intergovernmental Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystems services that tells us we're going to lose 1 million species. So I don't think our region needs more science. I mean, we have the science. All the science are telling us multiple benefits of synergies linking climate action, ecosystem resilience, pollution prevention. I mean, if we tackled nature-based solutions, we're looking at reducing emissions. And you look at nature-based solutions, it's investing in mangroves, in investing in natural wetlands, starting to look at keeping our peatlands, keeping our forests. So the solutions are actually there. What we do need to do is we need to translate our science into key economic sectors, and we need to start to look at behavior. And so when we look at the environmental challenges in our region, I think we in many of the scientific communities, we're not doing a good job in being able to translate that in a way that business is able to use. Our region has the 100 most polluted cities in the world. We are not compliant with the WHO 2021 air pollution guidelines. We know it's making us sick, but somehow we're not able to translate this. So the externalities of the global public good, somehow we are struggling. So when we look at the challenges faced in the region, and when, at UNEP, we start to think about the issues and where do we put our focus? For me, it's really sustainable, inclusive multilateralism. So we have really important multilateral environmental agreements, but the fact is that it's got to bring more than governments. It's got to bring private sector. It's got to bring the scientists. It's going to bring media. We are now negotiating a legally binding instrument to end plastic pollution. But you must be at the table. You must be able to provide inputs, because we don't have time to negotiate an instrument and take 10 years for implementation to happen. And so I think forums like this are so important. And it's so important that we are better able to communicate the science to business. Another area where at UNEP we feel it's really important for this region, it's regional frameworks for environmental justice. So in the ASEAN region, we're looking at environmental rights agreements. In the Pacific, we're looking at a commitment to access to justice, public participation, access to information. We're also looking at ensuring the rights of environmental human rights defenders. And this has become a critical issue for our region. And this is so linked with economic growth and private sector. I mean, after Latin America and the Caribbean, we have the worst records in terms of how we treat environmental human rights defenders in all our countries. So we really look to private sector and businesses to work with us to strengthen rights of environmental human rights defenders. I mean, when they come up against pollution or coming up in terms of natural resources and rights of indigenous communities, we find that their rights are infringed. So we really count on a partnership to do this. At UNEP, we no longer believe it's a matter of if the right to a healthy environment should be implemented, but how. This right in the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework that was negotiated in December last year, it talks about how we bring this access to rights within this framework. We're finding that youth in courtrooms are taking us to task. We're finding countries like Vanuatu are sort of taking us to task, saying what is the right of the global commons. We're finding that ASEAN and the environmental rights framework, they're looking at policy instruments at national levels and in constitutions. But we need to make this right a reality for all. So I really count on science and business community to support us in strengthening the rights, to support us in transparency, in climate and nature-related risk disclosures. And with this, I thank you very much for taking time to spend with us today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, the Regional Director for Asia Pacific of the United Nations Environment Program, for that welcoming remarks. Excellencies, colleagues, from here onward, it's myself and Shireen will be sharing labor and we'll be co-moderating, co-chairing, on the other hand, of this session for the whole day. It's an action-packed program, as you say, but we simply cannot go ahead and waste time in that case. As Shireen said at the very beginning, this is the second forum, the second science policy business forum of the United Nations, and the first forum on ground. That's the important part. And Sri Lanka has the privilege in being the sponsor and the hosting agency for this event. So in that context, we are happy to have the Honorable Minister of Environment of Sri Lanka gracing this occasion. So it's now my pleasure to invite Honorable Nasir Ahmed, the Minister of Environment, Sri Lanka. Over to you, Honorable Minister.
Thank you. Ms. Deshan Sharing, UN Environment Program Regional Director, Asia Pacific. Therapy Maki Kawana, His Excellency Associate Minister for National Environment Services, the Cook Islands. Her Excellency Habibur Nahar, Deputy Minister of Environment, Forests and Climate Change, Bangladesh. Esteemed delegates, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to be a part of the second Asia Pacific UN Science Policy Business Forum, an unparalleled gathering that combines the power and expertise of government, industry, financial institutions, science, and civil society. There are companies, investors, and shareholders. There are the future generations, activists, and indigenous populations, all under the umbrella of local and global policy. Our common future demands changes which are informed by science. It is about climate change, the Paris Agreement, the UNFCCC negotiations, the future of nature and biodiversity, and disaster risk reduction under the Sendai framework. It is about sustainability and the sustainable development goals. The global transformation that is taking place involves everyone on earth and is being enacted through different means and by different actors. In that context, the role of science, policy, and business nexus is crucially important, and that signifies the importance and relevance of this forum. As the region, we face increasing climate shocks that are affecting the livelihoods, food security, and health of millions of people. At the same time, the region accounts for a growing share of annual global greenhouse gas emissions. The region's share of global emissions has escalated from 35% in 2010 to 39% in 2019. On a per capita basis, Asia Pacific annual GHG emissions at about 6 metric tons of CO2 equivalent. So it is necessary to have an urgent acceleration in decarbonization efforts as the region in order to achieve the goal of the 2015 Paris Agreement, depending on whether the region can shift from carbon intensive growth to low carbon development. Countries across the Asia Pacific region have committed to nationally determined contributions, while some countries have updated their first NDC, others have resubmitted a new NDC altogether. As a developing nation, Sri Lanka has taken steps towards sustainable economic growth, and we have set our sights on a greener future, evident through our ambitious policies, such as the Net Zero 2050 roadmap and the National Environment Policy. Sri Lanka's President, His Excellency the President Ranil Wickremesinghe, launched the Climate Prosperity Plan at COP27, focusing on renewable energy generation to transition towards a green economy. This is the first ever climate investment plan of Sri Lanka, and it is a roadmap to attract foreign investment in Sri Lanka's economy to boost economic growth and employment while also accelerating climate adaptation and bring down the country's greenhouse gas emissions. Under the roadmap, total resources mobilization opportunity is US dollar 26.5 billion through 2030. That is the opportunity for you all. That is where you will have to come in. I always say, we are talking too much. We are writing too much. We have enough and more policies on the paper. But when it comes to implementation, on the ground, every farmer on this earth, what is his contribution going to be? Are we interacting them to contribute towards all these policies that we are talking about? I think we are far below. That is the fact. So that's in your hand. Government alone cannot do that. We can set policies, we can facilitate, but it is your, of course, duty and responsibility while securing your profit. So this is the opportunity that we should look at it. We have embarked on several transformative journeys. Our net zero 2050 roadmap is charting our path to carbon neutrality. The National Environment Policy and Action Plan are our compasses guiding us towards ecological balance. With the national climate change and green procurement policies, we are integrating sustainability into the very fabric of our governance and trade. Our commitment does not stop there. Our policies on waste management, eco-labeling, and protecting environmentally sensitive areas showcase our holistic approach to sustainability. With plans like the National Biodiversity Strategic Action Plan and the Renewable Energy Resources Development Plan, we are reinforcing our pledge to both nature and the future. Innovation is our allies. From green hydrogen research to spearheading e-mobility with pioneers like Vega Innovations, we are not just adapting, we are leading. Recognizing the power of international cooperation, we have linked bilateral agreements such as with Singapore and Japan to bolster carbon trading and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. On the business front, the SDG Investor Map for Sri Lanka identifies 15 investment opportunities in areas like healthcare, renewable energy, and infrastructure, providing a roadmap for sustainable economic growth. Thinking out of the box, Sri Lanka is proposing to establish a climate justice forum as a strong and convincing alternate mechanism to compel the decision-making wealthy industrialized countries to take more tangible, quicker, far-reaching measures to address the climate change and raise the voices for climate justice at COP28. We also expect to submit a resolution on climate justice for UNIA 6 too. Further, I would like to announce that Sri Lanka has organized a side event on climate justice on 5th October 2023. The UN Science Policy Business Forum has created a vital platform for intersectoral dialogue and collaboration as we approach UNIA 6 and COP28. This confluence of influential stakeholders must spearhead transformative actions, leaving no nations behind. Let us harness this unique opportunity to build a sustainable, prosperous, and inclusive Asia Pacific. We thank UNEP for creating this unique opportunity in support of the ministerial process. I am both pleased and energized to be a part of this remarkable community. Together, let us script a new chapter for a sustainable, prosperous, and inclusive Asia Pacific. I wish this event every success. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Minister of Environment of Sri Lanka, Mr. Nasir Ahmed, for that eloquent speech as the opening address. As you quite correctly said, Honorable Minister, we are good policymakers, but in many occasions we have failed miserably in its implementation. Probably we are trying to do everything without prioritizing actions. That's where we are right now. Excellencies, colleagues, this is the first on-ground meeting, as you all said, as we all know. But we have already opened up a provision for people, the lead speakers who are unable to visit Sri Lanka at this particular moment and to join online. So here comes an occasion. The chief scientist of the UN Environment Programme, Andrea Hinwood, will be joining us online to speak a few words on pathways to strengthening the science policy business interface for a resilient future. Andrea, hope you can hear me.
I can indeed. Hello, everyone. Good morning.
How are you, Andrea?
Me. Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you well. It's over to you now.
Great. I will start. Thank you very much. Okay, good morning, everyone. I wish I was there in person to speak with you. Already the speakers have been most inspiring. And I hope I'm going to give you a little bit more of a flavour of what we talk about in UNEP of strengthening the science policy interface. So science is absolutely imperative to inform good decision making. You know, it attempts to be very objective. And of course, the more trust we have in science and the range of options available to us, the more we can implement suitable solutions that make sense where you are on the globe with the particular circumstances. At UNEP at 50, we released a report on strengthening the science policy interface. And essentially, that was about how we improve transparency, stakeholder engagement, and embracing different decision makers, and of course, people who participate, such as business. We also have then embraced strategic foresight as a way of actually planning for solutions in the future so that we can actually look at the disruption. So if we're trying to plan for improved agriculture or put policies in place to actually reduce pollution or for climate, what are the disruptors or the events that we can see in the future that actually help us enhance the science policy interface, but also make decisions that mean that we don't lock in particular industries or activities that are going to harm the environment, but also harm industry, business, and the community. And I'll just go back to this slide here on foresight. So UNEP has initiated foresight, scenario building, and predictive analytics to actually look at different models for how we might frame solutions. And of course, I call it the science of solutions because science is still about how you analyze policy and how you look at different aspects. And so we need to go beyond looking at our environmental problems, but we need to provide support for practical, tangible actions that can be taken on the ground. And this is part of strengthening the science policy interface. And we have commenced a foresight process. I also just want to mention the Asia Pacific region in terms of progress, in terms of air quality. Dechen mentioned it below. Science has informed our understanding of the sources of air pollution, the impacts of air pollution, and of course we know about all of the different sectors and the range of options available to us. And as has been outlined, we're not seeing any dramatic improvements in air pollution, even though we know some of the solutions. But perhaps what science can help us inform is why are we not undertaking the actions to actually address things that will significantly improve economy, human lives, and agriculture and ecosystems. And I think it's quite good to see that we have many countries that are putting in place clean production incentives in the Asia Pacific region. And that's because there is a focus on this topic. This is a classic example of the science policy interface in action, where the groups in the Asia Pacific region are actually looking at how they can enhance air quality management to enhance the outcomes for humans, business, and the environment. If I can just turn to foresight, UNEP has initiated on what it calls a foresight trajectory. And what we're aiming for is that foresight informs our strategic planning, but it also informs issues that may be disruptive that can help in the planning of other entities as well. So it's a process that enables us to keep the issues on the horizon, what's actually coming down the pipeline that actually might be important to consider, to actually look at how we consider our work streams and priorities. Have we got the right workforces for the future? If it's going to change, what do we need to do? How do we prioritize issues? How do we see trends that might be beneficial to different groups? And develop a future-oriented strategy. And so what we're in the process of doing, we've scoped out our foresight exercise, we've undertaken a global Delphi survey, we've actually just had our first global sense-making session, and we are coming to all the regions to talk to people about the outputs of the issues. And I have to tell you, they're everything from 3D printing to food, but actually to behaviour change is very strong, education issues, and of course, we know things like AI and technology are massive disruptors. So how can we both use them, use them as opportunities, but also consider them in the sorts of policies we may put together? So far, we have developed 8 prevailing themes, as you can see on the slide, in terms of law, regulation and policy, right through to resource scarcity, efficiency and waste. They are actually broken down into 32 emerging change clusters, which consider climate altering technologies, artificial intelligence and technology, urbanization and demographics, etc. We have 233 signals of change. So that's where we have both strong and weak signals in change in particular issues. And through our global survey, that was based on 1,156 signals of change that people across the globe actually submitted. One of the key aspects of improving the science policy interface to actually bring all of this information, I mean, how does the foresight information help you? Well, it helps you if we make it open, accessible, and transparent. And one of the key aspects that's already been mentioned, that we can increase trust and collaboration the more open, inclusive, and transparent we are in terms of data, information, and knowledge. So one of the key things that we would request of everybody, that this is a time to enhance trust. Trust in science, trust in institutions is a big signal of change that's coming through our foresight process. We know that there is great distrust across a range of different entities. We can actually help address this by providing open science, but also providing the solutions to different groups that make sense where they are in space and time. So we're hoping that this forum in particular can actually embrace this principle, and it's something that UNEP is working on, which is going to improve the conversation and also enable us to consider more diverse and inclusive processes that lead to really good policies, and importantly, that implementation question. And finally, I just wanted to say that if science and policy is communicated well, if we consider diverse stakeholders and we make it accessible and we translate the science effectively, we will drive practical solutions and have a resilient future. And with that, I will leave my intervention and happy for any questions. Thank you very much.
Very much, Andrea. Andrea, hope it's late in the evening right now?
No, it's early morning.
Early morning, okay. Wow. I mean, the whole thing changed upside down for me then, unfortunately. Thank you very much, Andrea, for that wonderful speech, giving a lot of insights. The next in the agenda, we have the Director of Environment and Development of the Economic and Social Commission for Asia Pacific, ESCAP, with us to deliver a short speech. Please welcome Sang-Min Nam, the Director of ESCAP.
Thank you. Good morning, Excellencies, honorable participants. It's my pleasure to deliver very brief presentation on Asia Pacific at Crossroads. I was advised by organizers that to be really short, maybe in 5 minutes. So I will try to focus on just the key messages. My first point is increasing GHG emissions in Asia Pacific. Here we have a different setting of a region. For ESCAP, it includes Central Asia and Russian Federation as well, including Turkey. So current our emission is about 55% of global emission. So my first message, sorry. here is we do need a rapid and substantial and sustained step to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. In that regard, Honorable Minister highlighted Sri Lanka's policy, this climate prosperity plan. So we are really encourage the countries to take a stronger step towards reduction of GHG emission. As highlighted by our regional director of UNEP, Dechen, so vulnerability is another key issue. Here, out of 10 most impacted countries in the world, Asia Pacific has 6 countries. So encouraging vulnerability, so addressing climate mitigation is a key to address this biggest challenge. And then I'm highlighting here, enabling the proper and effective implementation of net zero goals and policies. Regardless of the development stage of our member state, about 80% of our member states have already committed to net zero target, of course, including Sri Lanka. And you have seen different level of their policy implementation, including those 6 countries that have adopted a law. Austria, Fiji, Japan, Maldives, New Zealand are okay. So they are moving ahead. And then there are many countries still at the stage of a declaration. So we need to move those countries move forward, and then supporting countries to implement their, my coordination problem. So we are really, we need to strengthen multilateral cooperation to support those countries at the late stage, and then also those countries that have already developed the policy documents to quickly implement the programs. And we have seen this is also regional condition, regional situation of energy systems contribution to. Here, coal and oil, they are constituting about 67% of total primary energy. But coal, despite that, they are covering about 40%, they are emitting about 60% of GHG emissions, carbon dioxide emissions from Asia Pacific. So how quickly we can phase out the coal, that will really shape our future. And also accelerating renewable energy deployment in developing countries. We have seen rapid increase of renewables. Here, especially China. Now, China this year exceeded 50% for their renewable in total energy mix. And then, especially for China now, the total installed capacity of renewable is 1,300 gigawatt. It is really making big progress. And Vietnam and India also making big progress. But as you see, many other developing countries, especially LDCs, low-income countries, they are making very slow progress. So how to scale up renewable in most countries, and also making, supporting developing countries to scale up renewable. That is a key challenge. So this is another point that I wish to convey here. And promoting low carbon pathway of urbanization. Now about 50% of Asia Pacific population are living in cities. And then compare with the many other regions, Asia Pacific is still in the phase of a rapid urbanization. So which means we are developing new urban infrastructure. And there is a clear correlation between urbanization and GHG emissions. So how we make our urbanization in a low carbon towards a more low carbon pathway. That is also critical challenge for us. And then safeguarding nature and promoting nature-based solution, which was highlighted by also regional director and honorable minister. And we have seen, especially for various long-term low-emission development strategies of our member states. Here I'm putting Cambodia, Nepal, and Thailand, 3 our regional members. And to achieve their net zero target without nature-based solution, it's not possible. So how to safeguard nature, and then how to promote the nature-based solution will be also critical for us. And accelerating transition, but in a just way. We have seen here in the world, we have about 7,000 coal-fired power plants. Many are located in Asia Pacific. And then we have also 3,700 coal mines in the world. And of course, many are also located in Asia Pacific. Meanwhile, we have seen rapid increase of this solar power and also wind power, and how to bring those industries, energy sectors that have to be phased out, bring them into this low carbon energy system, low carbon industry will be our key challenge. 1 minute, okay. And in that regard, we need to be better prepared for just transition. It should be also part of our NDC and long-term low emission development strategy. But despite the heavy needs for our just transition, here Asia Pacific countries, when it comes to NDCs, only 12% of NDCs incorporate just transition, and 38% of long-term low emission development strategy incorporate just the transition. So this is much lower than Africa, Arab states, Americas, and Europe. So we do need to incorporate just the transition into our climate action plan. So this is my last slide. We had a presentation from UNEP on foresight. So we do need anticipatory and adaptive planning. That really needs a foresight work. And then I also would like to highlight that this utilize a transition for LDCs leapfrogging. I mean, there are many a few high-income countries. Also, there are a few really manufacturing-based, industry-based countries, including Japan, ROK, China, and others. Of course, they need to phase out many industries that are not working with net zero. But many LDC countries, low-income countries, they have opportunity to leapfrog. So bypassing the development pathways that many those upper middle countries faced. And then also strengthening international cooperation coordination, as highlighted by our regional director, inclusive multilateralism, yes, we need. We can't spend over 10 years to negotiate a new multilateral instruments, but we need a partnership that can bring business community and science community into regional cooperation. So with that, let me conclude my presentation. I hope this helps us our organize. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sangmi Nam, the Director of the Environment and Development of ESCAP. If I got it correct, there were about 3,700 coal power generating plants and nearly 15,000 solar power generating plants. And that itself is an encouraging message for renewable energy and about the future. Well, Excellencies and colleagues, that ends the introductory segment of the second forum of the Science Policy Business, organized by the UN Environment. It's now time to change the lecterns. To conduct the next session, Sherin, it's over to you.
Thank you so much. Well, actually, no lectures at all. This is time for conversation. I hope you can hear me. So get ready. We want to talk, and we want to hear you, and we want to debate. So in this section, we asked our friends and our partners from some of the most prolific private sector leaders in the world to answer a few questions that focus on regulatory frameworks. So they will talk to governments and they will make their commentary and share their perspective on whether regulatory frameworks, the policies, the incentives are built for purpose when we talk about green economy transitions. And we ask the question, are we on track? And as we do that, we are going to look at policy cohesion. The Stockholm +50 process that the Science Policy Business Forum led in its own dimension One of the key conclusions was that the lack of policy coherence is one of the key barriers. We will examine that in a little bit more detail. We are asking, how cohesive are sustainability policies impacting business, or the lack of the cohesion in these policies? What suites of policies need to be integrated or put in place to encourage and empower sustainable business? What are the policy imperatives that need to be developed to encourage direct foreign investment? And what are the barriers and the key pathways to doing better? I would like to start by giving the floor to Tora Liefland, who is Head of Public Affairs at the Volvo Group, Sweden. Thank you for joining us, and please, the floor is yours. And I would encourage you to speak from your seat. You don't need to get up.
So, distinguished participants of this roundtable, thank you so much for the opportunity to be part of this conversation. I'm Tora Liefland. I'm representing the Volvo Group. We're a global manufacturer of trucks, buses, and construction equipment. We are present in 190 markets, and we have a presence across Southeast Asia, Korea, Japan, India, and China. So I will try to share a bit our thinking and what we believe we need to see from policymakers to be able to decarbonize our sector. And I will also highlight some examples of public-private collaboration that we really see can drive change. So first, as correctly pointed out by Dechen Zering in her welcoming remarks, some sectors carry a higher CO2 footprint than others, and transport and construction are certainly part of those. So the solution that we bring to the table, quickly, we have a three-pronged approach. One is battery electric trucks, buses, construction equipment. Other one is fuel cell electric powered by hydrogen. And the third one is simply combustion engines using fossil-free fuels, such as hydrogen. So what do we need then from policymakers to accelerate and to make this happen? I echo what Sang-Min Nam highlighted. The need for fossil-free energy production is essential, obviously. Investments in grid, investments in infrastructure, capacity and charging. In Europe alone, we're looking to need 50,000 charging points to cover the needs for transport. And in terms of regulation, we like to say that we welcome both carrot and stick. So for financial incentives for our customers investing in the new solutions are essential. But we also see that CO2 pricing, like carbon taxes, is a useful policy tool. And also zero emission zones in cities that really drives the demand for zero emission solutions. So really a package of cohesive policies is needed to address this. And we also believe that this transformation requires intensified collaboration between the private and the public sector. And we have to work together like we're doing here today. I'd like to highlight two examples where we've been engaged. The first one is from California, where in 2019 we collaborated in the so-called LIGHTS project, which was about finding a quicker way of commercializing heavy-duty battery electric trucks. And that was a success. We've also been a partner to the Sejong Smart City project in Korea, which is an urban mega project where we have contributed with teleoperated construction equipment, making it safer and more sustainable. So really, we have set net zero targets for 2050 in line with Paris Agreement. And in order for us as a company to be successful, we need to sell 100% fossil-free products by 2040. And to accomplish that target, we need to sell 30% electric vehicles by 2030. So we've set our targets, we've committed our investment. We are ready. Question is, are governments ready? Are you ready to launch these policies? We think we will need both carrot and stick. And we hope that the Asia-Pacific region will really show the way here and empower sustainable business.
Thank you so much, and I'll come back to you. But before I do that, I'm very happy to go to Norway, and one of the most important companies dealing in circularity. I'm very happy to give the floor to Anupa Ahi, who's Vice President, Public Affairs, TOMRA Systems.
Thank you, Shireen. Thank you for the opportunity. Wow. Thank you for to the earlier speakers. I think we have all talked about policy. We've talked about the issues of the region. I think we are listening about these issues on repeat. I want to really talk about the questions that you've kind of given us as guideline questions about what are the policy imperatives that need to create the infrastructure and possible implementation of these solutions. I really want to focus on this part because TOMRA is a waste technology company. We are present in over 100 countries. And we provide waste technology in collection. So through reverse vending machines, we collect used beverage containers, and we are also innovating to collect other materials. And we also provide sorting machines in solid waste management, in food and mining, but we are also innovating in other areas such as textile sorting. Why do I need to tell you this? Because whenever I go and talk to governments about waste solutions, holistic waste solutions, we inevitably are asked about the cost of our machines. And I really do not like that question because I don't know the cost of my machines. Our job is to share with the governments the frameworks that will enable this technology to do something. So just placing the machine in the country, in the region, is not your solution. Technology and cost is also not your solution. What we have observed is that money follows policy. So when the Environment Minister, Mr. Ahmed, was speaking earlier, he said, we can provide policy and you need to step in. And that's exactly what we say. You need to provide policy, but along with that, you need to provide compliance measures for it. You need to provide education about the policy, and then you need to be serious about a long-term goal for the policy. This is what is missing. When we ask industry to take action, they give us a beach cleanup. It doesn't work, Shireen. It doesn't work. These are not long-term solutions. When you need environmental solutions to work, they have to be financially sustainable. Financial incentives through policy intervention are the only way that make them work. We are happy to give you solutions that do not need TOMRA machines, but they will change the mindset. They will create the framework that enables things to happen. We have some examples from Asia Pacific, which are where I'm working, and I can share those with you when we go forward. I also want to talk about policy intervention, not just belonging to the environmental department, because when you're talking about cohesiveness, you need to bring the human side together, you need to bring the social side together, you need to bring the financial incentive side together into this. And this is why this kind of dialogue is really important. I'm going to allow you to speak to the other members on this panel, and then I'm happy to share examples about how we work in this space.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Anupa. I just hope my colleagues handling the microphones will give us some voice. Let us do better on the microphone tracks, please. So thank you very much, Anupa. And I think listening to you and listening to Tora, this is very important, but it opens so many questions, which we will come back to. Now, I'd like to go to Shatumin Gunaratne, the country director of Deloitte, for his perspective.
Thank you. Good morning. And it's my pleasure to address the second session of the United Nations Science Policy Business Forum on the environment for the Asia Pacific region. So I'm representing Deloitte. So Deloitte Associates is the firm which represents Sri Lanka. And we are having the presence in around 140 countries over the world. And we are having over 20 years experience in providing, helping the organization to make the progress toward delivering sustainable solutions for their stakeholders. So that includes not only the investors, but also their other business partners, customers, the environment, and the community at large. So we are providing various services across the world for the businesses to deliver a sustainable output ultimately to their stakeholders. So that's the ultimate objective of our organization. And I would like to reveal two findings which recently came out through some of the studies carried out by the Deloitte Global. One is on the Deloitte study showed that 67% of participants for that study were willing to pay up to 41% more for products if they were sustainable. So that's how the market reaction. And the second observation was almost all represent, that means the 97% of Deloitte C-suite sustainability report indicated that their companies have already been negatively affected by climate change that has disrupted business models and supply networks worldwide. So we cannot ignore, as a private sector organizations, totally the impact coming to us, the sustainable related developments and what's happening outside our businesses. So we have to consider in our policy decision making and whatever the decisions we are taking in our businesses, we have to highly concentrate about the sustainable related developments happening all over the world. So some of our organization, even the Sri Lankan origin companies, are not limited only to the Sri Lanka. So they are having the presence all over the world. So they are in the multinationals, they are engaging with multiple governments, multiple industries, multiple stakeholders, multiple employees, the communities with different backgrounds. So they cannot ignore what is happening all over the world, and they have to adapt to each of the country, because each of the country is having unique environment and they are having unique policies. And also I believe as business organization, we should go beyond what is stated in the policies by the governments. The organizations are placing or they are positioning in different places when considering about their readiness to sustainability or how they are utilizing the resources and all. So the government can set out the minimum thresholds, but they cannot approach to everyone. So therefore, we should have our own measures or our own policies in our businesses that suits for our business, and that is driven by the sustainability. So that should go beyond what is set out by the government as a policy or by the legislature as an act or some kind of other regulation. So we should go beyond that. So therefore, Deloitte has suggested 3 strategies for the companies to concentrate when developing the strategies related to the sustainability. The first one is the strategy number 1 is at the tone at the top. That means at the board level, the discussion should have to be take place by considering the impacts to the environment, the society. So that should be there in your agenda, and we cannot disregard that fact in every decision we are taking at the board level. And the second strategy is that should flow to the middle level and the lower level people. So the middle level management should engage in the sustainable business policies implementation, and also the people at work should have to clearly demonstrate their commitment towards the sustainability. So therefore, the strategy number 2, there should be sort of KPIs in the business that link to the sustainable, that should definitely go beyond the threshold set out by the governments. And the third one is look around to leverage your business ecosystem. Some of the companies might not have the required resources, in-house resources to have sustainable solutions, so they can collaborate. So the industries, they might have sort of collaborations, the forums, the chambers and all. And also sometimes certain industries, they are regulated. So the regulators can play a vital role by introducing knowledge sharing mechanisms, the knowledge exchanging between the Asia Pacific countries or some of the other countries outside the world by collaborating their experiences into the business. So those are the three main strategies what we are proposing. The strategy number one at the top level, the number two that link to the KPIs, and the third one is the collaboration in the industries. And also mostly the Sri Lankan companies are following now the code of best practices of the corporate governance, which issued by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka, which I am also a member. And that has recognized the importance of the sustainability into the business. And it's a voluntary code that suggested a framework for the companies to adapt in their governance that is considering the ESG as well. So that includes in the code the paragraph H1.4.1 that says the company should establish a governance structure to support its ability to create value and manage risk in the short, medium, and long term, recognizing, managing, and reporting on all permanent aspects of ESG. So the engagement of the upper level should clearly demonstrate through that. So I'm suggesting the corporates to have a look on that framework and to adopt that. And we are in a different positions. And so I believe we should go beyond what is stipulated by the government.
Thank you very much indeed. I'll just request our friends from private sector to be prepared, because I'll come back to you with a key question. And I'll take, basically each one should take, if possible, less than a minute, where we look at, in your opinion, what are the key barriers? Choose one and say, if we overcome this, it will make a big difference. Maybe not all the difference, but a big difference. What are the key barriers? What is the one thing? And how would you propose that it is resolved? Now, we talked about companies in Sri Lanka. We had kind of a more global perspective from global companies with their commentary in general, but the commentary on the region. Now I would like to go to Kirti Gunawardani. He's the president of the Federation of Chambers of Commerce and Industries in Sri Lanka, to share with us the perspective from the businesses here.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to address this esteemed forum. Let's, putting sustainability into gear in the Asia Pacific region. Sustainability, to me, not just a buzzword. It is a necessity for our businesses, our communities, and our planet. I'm here to address few key issues of sustainability policies impacting business at country level, across the region, and internationally. The first one, comprehensive sustainability policies. At the country level, the effectiveness of sustainability policies varies significantly across the Asia Pacific region. While some countries have made significant steps, others still in the early stages of adapting comprehensive sustainability policies. This lack clear policies can create challenges for business operating in multiple countries. Deviating regulations and standards can lead to increased compliances, cost, operational inefficiencies, and market uncertainties. On the regional and international level, there has been a growing recognition for the importance of sustainability. Intakes like initiatives like the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and international agreements such as Paris Agreement on climate change have set a global framework for sustainability. However, harmonizing sustainability policies and standards across countries remains a formidable challenge. The impact of these disparities is felt by business in terms of compliance, complexity, market access, and investor confidence. give consistency in sustainability policies across the region and internationally would create a more level playing field, reduce uncertainty, and foster innovation and sustainable practices. There are a few issues that we have to take into consideration, suits for policies for empowering sustainable business. The government has to look for incentives and tax benefits for the organization and the businesses who's into sustainable practices and technologies. Regulatory framework, clear and consistent regulation should be established to ensure compliance and accountability in sustainability efforts. Access to finance is a greater barrier in especially countries like Sri Lanka. This has to be sorted out. Capacity building, investment in education and training programs can help business to adapt sustainable practices effectively. This kind of capacity building processes even can be undertaken by chambers like us to support this initiative. Then policy imperatives for attracting international companies to set up operations in the Asia Pacific region requires a formidable business environment. Key policy improvements including stable legal and regulatory framework, which has to look at by all governments, infrastructure development, market access, policies that facilitate market access and reduce trade barriers can attract foreign investment. Example, ease of doing business. Environment and social standards, of course, another area that we have to look at. Barriers and key pathways to improvement, I would say lack of awareness. Many businesses are not fully aware of the benefits of sustainability. That has to be educated. And short-term focus, businesses are more often prioritize short-term profits over the long-term sustainability. Then resource constraints is another area. So I would like to conclude at that. And if there are any issues that we can take it up at the next level. I think, at the start, from the starting point up to now, all the speakers, they mentioned that, all these countries had a rich history of sustainability. We have forgotten that and we are trying to regain that. So this has to be emphasized.
Thank you very much. Kirti, please allow me to ask you this. Do you believe that companies, of course we're talking about companies and industries realizing that there is a big discrepancy between the larger companies, the SMEs, the ones in between, and so on, and we acknowledge that. But in general, do you think that industries and private sector companies in the developing world would be having a harder time than, say, for example, international companies that are operating, say, in Sri Lanka or in the region?
Yes, certainly. There is an issue, especially in the area of financing. Say, there are many ways that, they can go in for sustainable energy. Example, solar. Sri Lanka is one of the best places to get into solar, but the cost is high. But if there are low-cost methods adapted by the government and policymakers, and to encourage industries to move towards more sustainability, so then definitely they will move towards that. But now there is a bigger issue for them to invest on such technologies, knowing the fact. So there are definitely long-term benefits, so which there is no capital to invest for that kind of initiatives. But if that can be done, and in the meantime, the upskilling them onto the next level, if someone can look after that area, certainly there will be a lot of momentum in Sri Lanka for all businesses to move towards upper level.
Thank you. And this is the same question I think that I would like to maybe highlight when we start looking at the Pacific Islands, least developed countries, where it is even more challenging, and we would like to hear about that, and we will in a second. Just before that, I would like to welcome Sashith Balage, his director of Group Supply Chain, Hella Apparel Holdings, and they have a very specific example where they are operating internationally, including in the European market, and with the new ESG, the environmental and social governance regulations. I am very keen to know to what extent these new accountability and disclosure regulations for companies from the region operating in Europe, how much would it impact their operations? Of course, it is important to keep upping our sustainability standards and reportings. We have a full track on data and accountability and transparency, but I think the point here, is this a barrier or is it an opportunity for companies from the region? Over to you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Sashith. I'm representing Hella Apparel Holdings. We are a global apparel manufacturer, employed over 18,000 employees, and we produce about 10 million pieces a month. So when it comes to the question regarding the regulatory factors in Europe, so we see a strong and increasing regulatory tailwind in place in both US and Europe. Specifically in Europe, EU sustainability and textile strategy, which demands to have carbon and environmental footprint, recycled content, and product durability, recyclability, also with the support of the digital passport. So these are in place. So then, being in Asia Pacific region and manufacturers, we have a kind of a daunting task in front of us to comply with those rules and regulations. I think this is an opportunity for us, because if you look at 70% plus garment being manufactured out of this region, and being Sri Lanka, we are accounting for about 40% plus merchandise export, and if you look at Bangladesh, it's more towards 70% plus. So we see an opportunity. Why these regulatory in place? If you look at 5 million tons of clothing discarded every year, it's 5 million tons. So right now, only 1% of clothing are being recycled into new clothing. So there's an opportunity, clear opportunity for us as partners to take this forward. If you look at one of the key collaboration what we have done, so this used to be one of your used jean, so we were able to recycle into a cellulose. Cellulose is where you can get into a viscose. So you can worn out garment, post-consumer, get it into a fiber level, then yarn, then get into the garment again. So you can give a kind of a new life to your product. So technologies are in place. So we work with a Swedish manufacturer in collaboration. So simultaneously, getting to your point, yes, there could be impact on the value chain and supply chain when it comes to the traceability angle, because each product will demand for a digital product passport, which you have to open up your transparency up to the farmer's level. So this is one of the kind of important areas all of us to work in harmony and in collaboration with getting to a universal platform, I would reckon, because each one of us uses some of each other's raw material. We, Sri Lanka, could import from India, or Far East, they would do the same thing. So getting into one platform will enhance the visibility across the supply chain and ensure chain of custody to ensure that your product is secured and given the transparency to the customers, and so they are informed. So
I'll ask you to stop here for a second, and do forgive me, I'll be a bit tight with time, simply because we need to hear from more and to be more efficient with our time, which is a challenge, but we will get there. Now, one of the questions I would like to throw to the floor when we open the discussion, based on what you said now, actually, and I saw the president of the Chambers of Commerce nodding, is the fact that we are complying in the developing world through the different industries with, say, for example, ambitious European standards that come with their own problems. I mean, we heard about, is ESG kind of marginalizing disclosure on carbon or on emissions because of the other social kind of standards that could blur the vision when it comes to decarbonization. I mean, there are lots of arguments out there that and we're still learning. It's still kind of early days as this gets into force, for example. But does that mean if we can comply, should we have tighter compliance and reporting standards, say in Asia Pacific, for example? I'll just throw it to the floor and we can approach it later, but just food for thoughts. Okay, so the last intervention before we have the open floor here is from Amanti Pereira, General Manager of Mass Capital. Amanti, please, the floor is yours.
Very much. Can everyone hear me? Okay. So in the spirit of keeping this conversational and short, I'd just like to say I represent MAS Holdings, which is South Asia's largest apparel manufacturer, heavily present in the region under scrutiny today and also beyond. We employ 100,000 people. When it comes to the conversation around, how cohesive is, policy, let's take a look at the fact that my company has, committed to science-based targets. But when you look at the region that we're in and some of the countries, we know that we can't reach our renewable requirement with the existing, policies or the the systems that we are adhering to. What would require us to look at is the fact that, as the Honorable Minister spoke of, their roadmap would be 2050. We are serving customers who want it in the here and now, right? So there's a great opportunity loss when they're looking for sustainable, destinations. We have the opportunity when we have the best quality, we have the best labor, but if we lose out on not being green enough, that is an opportunity for creating shared value. And that in itself, like you said, if policy is there, the money comes down, we can afford, Tora's cars, we can afford on your machines. All of that happens if we really take that cohesive view of where is this policy going to take us, where's the money coming from? And if we can really invest in green technologies that would bring the business to us, the business is there for the taking. And right now that's a competitive advantage that would hold us in good stead. So that's just a thought for me.
Thank you very much. So our speakers, I just want you, if you're ready, to just tell us the one barrier that you feel, if removed and with focus on the region, would transform the way you do business here, whether you're based here or you're international. I will start with Tomra.
Sure. Thank you so much. When I interact with the Asia Pacific governments, including small islands, we've been talking to Fiji, we've been talking to other islands as well. The big barrier in their mind is to not commit for a Ferrari solution. This is a Norway solution. It works for Scandinavian countries. It's European. It's a very big barrier because let me tell you this, Europe and other Western countries have bigger issues. I live in Australia and we have legacy systems that we have to fight and we have behaviors that are so set. Whereas Asia Pacific offers a great opportunity. We don't have the legacy systems. We can really go state of art. And why can we not go for Ferrari? Sustainability is really built in our culture. So what is then blocking the investment and taking the next step? It's the lack of faith in rule of law. Because you can have a policy, but really, are you going to implement it? I don't want to name countries here, but we have seen countries introducing policies, but no action taking place. And that's because it is not supported by the entire ecosystem that goes into designing a policy. It is a mix and match of a variety of policies borrowed from here and there. It's not a consultative, organic process to design it to suit the objective. It does not include the education process, and it does not include a longevity of financial sustainability inbuilt into the policy. Systems like extended producer responsibility allow for that to happen. They are a financial tool, and they are a very strong financial tool. We've seen them to be very, very successful. That sometimes even takes away the need for very high capital. So, so the government does not need to even invest. It is a self-sustaining system. So we have these systems. They already exist. We don't have to wait for 2050 to deploy them. This is low-hanging fruit. And companies like us are very willing to share our experience, bring the framework. By the way, the textile manufacturers in the room should talk to us. The first ever automatic textile sorting plant is in Sweden, and it's next step towards EPR in textiles. That could be the next big thing. So that's.
Thank you very much. I'll go to Volvo Group. Tora, please.
Try again. Okay, so choosing one barrier is very hard. So I'm going to be a bit cheeky and choose two, but from different perspectives. So if you're asking our customer about the number one barrier to a quicker uptake for electric vehicles or construction equipment, it would be charging points. We have launched electric trucks on the markets in Malaysia and Korea, China, Singapore, everywhere the question is the same. What about charging? But then more from a corporate perspective, I think everyone knows, policymakers knows that there are effective policy tools like carbon pricing available, but they are hesitating to introduce them because of the effect it may have on low income groups. So we think one barrier that could be removed is to really look at just transition measures and to compensate these groups so that we can introduce the effective policy tools that we know already works.
Tora, just a follow-up question here, and it's something that we've been discussing actually with Anna for a while here. Now, when we talk about charging, many countries say we don't have the resources. From your perspective, how can this be overcome? Because we cannot go through the same cycle. We need electrification, we need to move forward. The charging stations are not there. What do we do about it? It's high cost, it's high maintenance. Just any thoughts on that?
Sure. So we are taking measures to overcome this gap. So, for example, we're forming a joint venture with competitors in Europe called Cellcentric, investing in a charging point infrastructure network. So obviously, you know, we're doing our part as well, and we're very open to collaborate with governments as well.
Thank you very much. So I would like to go to Cookie and MasterCard.
Yes, so we've been talking about on this sustainable development. I would like to invite the esteemed guests here today, right, to perhaps rethink a little bit about the value chain of government's development approach, right, and as well as programs that can drive more synergies between public and private sector efforts. Now, incorporating SDGs in government's environmental development program, I would suggest that this to be incorporated in not just one particular agency or a ministry, but really as a whole of government approach, right? And in turn, when the SDGs are incorporated, to also come with well-defined objectives and metrics. And we believe that funding for development, such development initiatives, can incorporate SDGs to achieve a more balanced economic benefits, as well as mitigate environment degradation, right? And this is where MasterCard have actually been doing a lot of work as part of our ESG goals as well, in driving a more equitable social inclusion outcome. And I would like to point some examples in the type of work that we do with governments. For example, in tourism, right, where we work with tourism boards to develop more sustainable tourism practices. And one way is to understand what are the kind of traveler segments that you would like to target in order to match to the sustainable propositions that you can offer. One example would be in our work with the Pacific Tourism Organization, right, where we leverage our transaction data to help the tourism organization, which represents countries in the Pacific Islands, to better appreciate what are the profile of the travelers globally, and which are the ones that may resonate more, right, with the tourism attractions that the Pacific Islands would have. So one way is to avoid over tourism, bring tourism spend, travelers as well as tourism spend into a more balanced representation in the other attractions in the country. And in turn, right, we're talking about a more sustainable consumption, right, of tourism activities, as well as bringing a more broad-based benefits to the wider population. So we believe that this is one aspect that not necessarily through legislation, but more through joint interests, right, from the government as well as the private sector, that we can create these synergies.
Thank you very much indeed. Perhaps I'll stop here and I'd like to open the floor for your questions, your commentary, and your suggestions. But let me start with questions. Are there any questions from the floor? It's a great opportunity that we are here together, and I think it's a wonderful thing if we are able to exchange ideas freely. So please do put your hand up if you have a question or a commentary. Yes. Please introduce yourself and go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I am Habibul Nahar, the Deputy Minister of the Department of Environment, Forest and Climate Change of Bangladesh. I have some key issues raised by the industry so far. I want to share with you those issues. The government has taken proactive measures and address industry concern and promote sustainable practices. The carbon tax and environment protection surcharge indicate a willingness to work with industries to reduce emission and pollution. The adaptation of leadership of energy and environmental design, LEED, certifications for factories, signals, and commitment to greener industrial practices. Furthermore, the Bangladesh government discussed to cancel planned coal-based power plants aligned with industry trends towards cleaner energy sources. Continued dialogue with industries and offering initiatives for sustainable practices can further enhance the response to their concerns.
Deputy Minister, Your Excellency, perhaps the question, one of the questions for me here, with all these measures that Bangladesh are taking, what is your vision in terms of the role of A, the international private sector? What are you expecting? What are you hoping? What kind of cooperation are you looking for in terms of the international private sector that perhaps own a lot of the technology? And then, on the other hand, the regional and national level private sector. Do you feel there is enough cooperation? Can we do more? How?
We are not getting this a mass scale of cooperation. So I believe that the most countries those are larger and industrial based, they will come beside us and help in this sector, in which we are behind.
And what kind of, I mean, we heard the private sector, and the conversations that we've been having before are ones where we need the right sets of policies, and maybe the Chamber of Commerce of Sri Lanka can second that with me. They need the right set of policies, the right kind of incentives, and the security of the business environment that will allow for these businesses to come.
I think the policymakers will decide that.
Okay, and I think part of the discussion will be, and part of the recommendations that we are getting are, how do we get there? And also, of course, how to create green jobs in our countries, how to upscale in terms of the opportunities of using green technologies, of investments, and of empowering the local businesses. Because the concept of leaving no one behind, I suppose, is a very important concept in this. Anything else you would like to add, or would you have any questions for our guests? Okay, the conversation will continue. I'm just requesting our panelists to please, we are taking stock as part of the recommendations that we are presenting to the Ministerial Forum. Please do share with us within the course of the day these questions and recommendations that you have for us. Anything more from the floor? Yes, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Stephen Victor, the Minister of Agriculture, Fisheries and Environment from Palau. So listening and sitting and listening to this dialogue with respect to policy driving private sector decision to invest or to focus on certain key solutions. And I'm kind of wondering what comes first, the demand or the policy? Certainly you're in business because you sold the product that created that demand. And then policy came in to regulate how that product is being utilized. We're at a point where some of these products are contributing to the global challenge of climate change, pollution, and biodiversity loss. To what extent do you feel as a company that you can drive that demand and then for the policy to come into place? Or do you see that the playing field need to be even by a policy for you to make that transition as a company?
Thank you for a very good question, and I'm going maybe to ask our panelists, should they share their views on that, but perhaps I will first go to the president of the Chamber of Commerce. He was asking basically what should come first, the policy or the product?
Actually, the product can come, but the policy should flow. So the moment that you come up with the product, then comes the standardization. So there are again another issue in this region. Each of the organization in each of the countries who's responsible for standardization, if they can sit together and come up for common agreements, so that can be a good game changer for almost all the countries for the benefit of their businesses. And in the meantime, they can come up with more sustainable doing businesses, give a little kind of more marks or whatever, I cannot say, that some system to implement there. Now the chambers, we do award schemes to recognize the businesses. We can come up with the organization who has better sustainable policies, better sustainable products in their businesses, to appreciate them more on a scheme like that. So these are the things that I come to my mind, really.
Very much. I'll go to Anupa.
Mr. Victor, it's a really good question, but I want to ask you a counter question. So if you have a product that is
that arrives, and there is no responsibility on end of life management. Nobody owns the responsibility. What are you going to do with the product? So policy first, 100%. But even before that, you need a vision. You need a champion that designs the vision of your country, your objectives. That follows by policy, and that follows by whatever solutions you want to place. They will attract the investment and the right behavior. So definitely that would be my suggestion.
Thank you very much indeed.
Hi, my name is Anup Podar, representing Eversource. I think we are asking the wrong question right now. I think there is no time to waste thinking about what comes first. You know, every country should just get after policy ASAP. You know, the demand will come. The experience in India is clear point that when the policies were there, the demand came, products came. The IRA in US is proving that when the policy setup is there, the demand is growing, the industry is coming. So the policy should come, and the countries should not be asking whether we should do it now. They should just get after it. So we are losing so much time. The session started saying the science is done, right? The talk is done. This is the time for willpower and action. You know, we lose another 10 years making policies, deciding who does what, you know, who pays for what, whether global north or global south. We all gonna be in deep trouble if we keep talking like this for 10 years. We should just get after it.
It's a good example, the IRA policy in the United States, and how it's shifting lots of the thinking around production and where and green production. But I think what you're saying really is, it is policy first, but we have no time to lose. To talk, we have time to act. Okay, I'll take, maybe I just want to know, because of time, I need to know how many interventions we have from the floor. 1, 2, 3, okay, 4. All right, I'll ask you to do it fast. And what we are going to do is this. We're going to adjourn for lunch, because we have to cooperate. There's so much happening at the same time. We have so many governments, so many side events that the organizers are trying to accommodate, so we are trying to cooperate, obviously. But at the same time, I'll ask you to come back at 2:30, and we will resume the agenda accordingly, with the session now listening to governments and the private sector asking governments the questions we want to learn about. So perhaps just a show of hands, I'll start here.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Prashanti Gunadana, Sri Lanka University, Jayawardhanapura. My point is actually that many companies talk about the sustainability and not having money because you know, the being green is not, you know, will not bring profit to them. So I think in relation to this, I wanted to just highlight just one point about this new ISO standard. ISO 14008 talks about putting values into the environment. So whenever there's an externality, you can put the value, and then you can get the standard, and you know that will add your value. So I just wanted to highlight that point. You know, you have a way of incorporating those social cost and the benefit into your product now. So I would you know, expect companies to consider this fact and labeling them with this ISO 14008. Thank you.
Hi, hope everyone can hear me. I'm Sandrine John from Ceylon Bank, Sustainability Manager from the financing side of it. What I would want to think out of the box and suggest is, of course, we do have sustainable development goals, and we want to arrive at this particular target in common. But can we have a kind of a region-wise cohesion? Because not like countries working in silo, but can we cluster certain countries and developing, develop the map accordingly, and then, with the kind of concerns that in the environmental perspective as well as the social perspective. And then to prioritize which regions are more vulnerable, and then to cluster it accordingly, and then develop the, phase out the development so that we can arrive at this particular goal target in a more flexible, feasible way, rather than we are acting in silo. That's what I want to make that comment. Thanks.
That's a very good point. Thank you very much. And I think it is one that we can take up in the next session when we talk about the government interventions as well. Any other interventions? I'll go to the back just to give as many people as possible a chance. Please keep it to the point, given time.
Hi, I'm Nishal Ferdinando, CEO of Jet Holdings, Sri Lanka. So just to add on to the sustainable manager of Ceylan Bank's point, I think one issue that we have in this part of the world is policy is not consistent, right? And it's not long term. So if you have a regional sort of policy and a lot of countries coming together and not acting as a silo, I think we also solve that consistency and long-term part of the policy which the private sector actually needs, even to get profit or even to sacrifice profit in the short term and to gain profit in the long term, and to be to have that long-term vision of this. I think that part adds to this. So I think if we can, if that actually happens, it solves another problem of policies not being consistent in this part of the world, not being long-term and subject to change. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Yes, please. Introduce yourself and your organization, please.
Thank you very much. I am Shahid Sangani from Co-Energy. The minister mentioned about policies and the need for implementation. And the point I want to make is Sri Lanka has just called for public consultation on the national policy on climate change. This policy has 18 policies and 128 strategies. But when you look at that, there is no actionable plan on it, there are just statements. So I completely agree with almost everybody here that we need policies, but policies alone is not going to make any impact unless these are, first there is very good consultative process in coming to these policies and strategies, which I feel has been lacking in what this national policy and NPCs is done. But more importantly, unless these policies also have proper action plans with responsibilities and very specific goals and objectives, policies are not going to make any much difference. Like the minister was saying, they'll just be piece of paper and then there'll be a next policy and a next policy.
That's a strong point, and maybe I'll ask you and I'll ask the president of the Chambers of Commerce, to what extent do you feel consultative process are happening and are effective, or do we need to see more of them to ensure that across government sectors and industry, there is more conversation and consensus ahead of policy adoptions?
If I'm answering that, I think there is very little. There has to be much more robust way of having this consultative process and getting the feedback, and then developing the policies in a consultative and in a cooperative manner, and not just getting the feedback and then isolating that and then doing it somewhere else.
Yeah, that's the same. I also agree with that. And of course, the certain change of governments and changing policies, it's not going to good for businesses. And in the meantime, so if we have a clear policy, and even for us to get some green funding or something like that, so the country policy should align with that particular project. So sometimes if that alignment is not there, so that's something that we have to address.
I'll be very naughty. I'll go to Europe. And to what extent do you feel in the European context, and we've seen many policies that have, caused where people get questioned, do you think that there is enough consultation at the European level, at the regional European level, in terms between the business sector and policymakers before the development of these policies?
Well, I think there could always be more, right? Rhetorical question. But I think with the transformation, there is a trend towards more consultation. That's what we see with the so-called Fit for 55 legislative package prepared by the European Parliament. There's been more consultation. But obviously, as a representative of business, you would always welcome more.
What about international businesses doing business?
I know there are interactions, but to be honest, I cannot comment for certain how it looks in these markets.
Just a quick one on India. Are you involved enough in policy making when it comes to business and sustainability?
Yes, we have been doing a lot of policy advocacies for the last 5 years. And the government has been listening from the business community. They have been acting very quickly, put things in place, which has helped.
Admirable, thank you very much. Okay, I'll take one last intervention.
Thanks, Shireen. Simply because you asked us to identify, one of the barriers and key pathways, and I think we should end in a little bit more of a positive note. There is great opportunity. As my colleague from Heller said as well, we are constantly looking for better materials. If we look at the opportunity for research and development and research funding, we have the universities here. Let's go after where we need new materials developed, and there's an opportunity there. Be it the policy, let everything follow that, so that there is an opportunity for Sri Lanka to harness, and there is definitely business to be got.
Thank you very much indeed. You will allow me to ask my colleague and co-organizer Subrato, do we continue or do you want us to break now? All right. No, of course, we will accommodate. So everybody, we are inviting you to a lunch break. We are deviating, with your permission, just a little bit from the agenda to accommodate time. And when we come back, we listen to government perspective and allow the opportunity to ask them some questions and to make a commentary on what we had to say now. Please enjoy your lunch. We come back at 2:30, please.
So I think, can you come? You can just tell something about your side event. Just so that before they go.
It's on. Yeah, thank you so much. I think it was a very useful and enriching discussion. Following this science policy dialogue forum, there is another connected event coming soon after this. We will be having a lunch break for half an hour now. And then ICIMOD has almost a similar but connected event on the regional cooperation for addressing the planetary crisis in one of the most beautiful mountainous regions of the world we call Hindu Kush Himalaya. You are all invited to that event. Please join us after the lunch. We will start at 1 o'clock sharp. And the session will continue up to 2:30. So look you around. Thank you so much.